lovely people, and welcome to Owen's Mind, a light-hearted trip through the contents of my head and the world in general. It is Sunday the 5th of January. My name is Owen, and here is what is on my mind today. So, as usual, I've picked out 5 stories making the headlines I wanted to give my thoughts on. Links will be in the description below so you can read each article in full and show those original publications some love. So, got some pretty heavy topics today, but we'll get through it together. So again, I just wanted to give my thoughts on these. I think they're important to raise. So let's get into it. Story number 1 today. And story number 1 comes to us from BuzzFeed News. Woman left a bar with 2 men, then texted her friend, "I feel in trouble," and her body was found weeks later. So yeah, not a nice story to start off with, but again, it's worth mentioning. I think there's a message here. The body of an Alabama woman who went missing last month after texting a friend she was in trouble has been found. Peyton Houston, 29, of Trustville, was last seen leaving a tin roof bar in Birmingham with 2 men around 10:45 p.m. on December 20th. Her remains were discovered Friday in a shallow grave behind a home in Hueytown, police said. Chief Deputy David Agee of the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office, which is investigating the death, told AL.com that investigators have not yet determined whether the death was the result of a homicide. Right now we have a lot more questions than answers, Agee said, but we hope to have those answers real soon. We're going to work hard and we're going to find out what happened. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office did not immediately respond to BuzzFeed News' request for a comment on Saturday. Houston had gone to the bar that night with some co-workers, according to family members. Police said Houston left the bar willingly with the 2 men, but shortly thereafter she texted one of her co-workers, "If I call, answer. I don't know these people and I feel in trouble," according to her mother, Charlene Houston. It was like Peyton to check in, but it wasn't like Peyton to send a text like that, her brother Evan Houston told Good Morning America last week. Following the news that her daughter's body had been discovered, Charlene Houston thanked the community and others for their support in a Facebook post on Saturday. "Our family didn't get the news we had hoped for, but I am very grateful that Peyton is coming home," she wrote. "We don't have to go through the torture of not knowing what was happening to her and where she could be." Police said they responded to the Hueytown home Thursday after officials developed information on a possible location for the remains of Peyton Houston, according to the Trustville Police Department. Her remains were located and identified the next day. Again, our thoughts and prayers with the Houston family as they begin the grieving process, Trustville Police said in a statement. So, firstly, just incredible resilience of the family. A truly horrible time, for them to put out a statement which says, we didn't get the news we want, but thanking the people who kind of helped find her shows incredible resilience, incredible class in the face of something terrible. So, as just to echo the police, their thoughts and prayers are with them. It's losing anybody is terrible. Losing anybody in a circumstance like this, just horrendous. The reason I bring it up is, again, it's just people know this by now, but just to reiterate, a bit of a public service announcement, just be so careful. The world shouldn't be this. I shouldn't have to sit here. Nobody should have to sit here. And no family should get this news because of the acts of horrible people. And it says, it's not been, in all fairness, the article, it says it's not been confirmed as a homicide, but it's definitely looking that way, isn't it? Let's face it. So, women in general, guys, girls, everybody, when you go out, just try and stay safe. And I know you shouldn't have to, in a perfect world, you should be able to go out, enjoy yourself, and meet people and talk and go off to places and do fun stuff and never have to worry that you're not going to get home. That should never be a worry. Sadly, that's not the reality. The reality of the world we live in is that there is horrible people in it. So again, she did the right thing. She texted with a friend saying, "Look, if I feel like I'm in trouble, if I call, pick up, in other words, do not ignore me." However, it sounds like she didn't get a chance to make that call. So, stay safe, particularly young women. I mean, it happens to everybody, but, young women are a target for predatory men and that kind of thing. And like I say, it happens. Murder is indiscriminate. Everybody, it affects everybody, but there is a large percentage, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't, of women being targeted, leaving bars, and for men with less than chivalrous intentions, and this is the absolute worst of them. So, again, if you go, please be careful. We don't want to hear stories like this, and thoughts are with the family. Anyway, let's move on to story number 2. So, slightly lighter fare, I suppose, compared to the last one. This is from CNN. Rod Stewart and his son have been charged with simple battery after a New York New Year's event, police say. Yeah, so singer Rod Stewart has been charged with simple battery after punching a security guard at the Breakers Hotel in Palm Beach, Florida on New Year's Eve, police say. Stewart, 74, told police he and his family were trying to get the children in their group access to a private event at the hotel. According to a Palm Beach Police Department probable cause affidavit obtained by CNN affiliate WPTV. The security guard working the event in the children's area said Stewart's group was unauthorized to enter and asked them to leave after they began to get loud and cause a scene, the affidavit states. Stewart's son, Sean Stewart, then got about nose-to-nose distance from the security guard's face, police said. The security guard placed his hand on Sean Stewart's chest and asked him to give some space when Sean Stewart shoved him backwards. Rod Stewart then punched the security guard in his left ribcage area, police said. CNN has reached out to the rock star's reps for comment. Footage from cameras at the hotel revealed that Sean and Rod Stewart were the primary aggressors, according to the affidavit. Both Stewarts were charged with simple battery and have been ordered to appear in court on February 5th. Firstly, what's simple battery? Simple battery? You just simply punch somebody. Is there a complex version where you have a much more elaborate method of hurting somebody? Bizarre. But yeah, it's just an odd story because I hope it's not one of those kind of celebrities swinging the weight kind of thing. I'm not a huge Rod Stewart fan, but he's been around. I'm a little bit younger than him, so I've always been aware of him. And he's the kind of thing, I'm youngish, so he's the kind of thing your mum likes, your granddad likes, and that kind of thing. And when I see him in interviews, he always seems very affable. I don't know the circumstance. I wasn't there. I don't know if there was alcohol involved, if he'd been irked earlier in the night and this was just something. It sounds like his son was wrapped in this guy's face, and the guy, as security guards do, pushed him away. He's like, step back kind of thing. And now at that point, it's a father seeing somebody put his hands on his son, so he's punched him in the ribs. Again, we don't know the full circumstance, but it just seems a little. I hope, beyond hope, that it's not one of them "do you know who I am" stories. The kind of story. I hate those stories where it's like a celebrity or somebody in the entertainment industry of somebody famous, kind of, do you know who I am? When they refuse entry, when they don't get what they want, and they kind of play the card. It's like, well, I'm more important than anybody else, so do you know who I am? Kind of let me. I hope it's not that. But yeah, it seems like it's New Year's Eve, and like a good true Scotsman, on New Year's, Rod took a swing at the security guard in the ribs as well. I suppose that's slightly better than going for his face. And it does. I mean, it's simple battery. I guess it's a term that covers a wide range of things. An assault can be if you give somebody a little push, that can class as assault. So battery does not necessarily mean that he really went at this guy. It sounds like he saw his son get shoved, that he maybe just in the ribs and whatever it was. But yeah, we'll see what happens. But I just found it an interesting story. It just seems one of those sort of nowhere stories. But it was New Year's, and if he wanted to get somewhere where he wasn't prepared to go. I mean, if he was generally not allowed in there, then you're not allowed in there, regardless of who you are. If it's like you're not authorised to enter this particular area or this particular party or whatever it happens to be, I'm afraid that's it. So anyway, we'll see. Next one. This is a complex one. I have to chew through this one a little bit. So this is in The Guardian. The High Court to decide if children can consent to gender reassignment. So, yes, a landmark test case to establish whether children can give informed consent to medical treatment for gender reassignment begins in the High Court this week. Lawyers acting for Susan Evans, a former psychiatric nurse at the Tavistock and Portman NHS Foundation Trust, which runs the UK's only NHS Gender Identity Development Service, or GIDS, and Mrs. A, the mother of an autistic 15-year-old girl who is on the GIDS waiting list, will file papers to commence proceedings in a judicial review brought against the Trust and NHS England. At the heart of the case is the provision of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to young people who wish to transition or are considering doing so. We are essentially seeking to say that the provision at the Tavistock for young people up to the age of 18 is illegal because there isn't valid consent, said Paul Conrath, the solicitor with Sinclair Shaw, which is representing Evans and the mother. Providing this treatment, puberty blocking and cross-sex hormones, then, we argue, to any young person who wants them requires, he argues, a specific order of the court on a case-by-case basis. The treatment cannot be delivered as a matter of general approach. Conrad suggested the legal action would be pressing the case of Gillick to its breaking point. In 1983, Victoria Gillick, a Roman Catholic mother of 10, challenged the right of doctors to prescribe contraception to girls under the age of 16 without their parents' permission or even knowledge. 2 years later, the House of Lords affirmed the doctor's right, ruling that the parental right to determine whether or not their minor child below the age of 16 will have medical treatment terminates if and when the child achieves sufficient understanding and intelligence to fully understand what is proposed. But Conrad said that the Gillick competence test should not apply when it comes to gender reassignment. The issue is whether the young person is of sufficient maturity and capacity to understand the consequences of their actions. We say it is a leap too far to think that Gillick is of sufficient maturity and capacity to understand the consequences. Yeah, it's a leap too far to think that Gillick as a judgment could apply this type of scenario, where a young person is being offered a treatment with lifelong consequences when they are not at a stage of emotional and mental vulnerability. It simply doesn't compute, and therefore whatever medical professionals say is consent is not valid in law. He acknowledged that the case will break new ground. I don't think there has been a case that has tested the policy or practice in this way. There may have been the odd case that's come up, but not one that's challenged a health service for making this service available. According to a crowdfunding page on the Crowd Justice website, Evans raised concerns about the treatment approach of the Tavistock with its clinical management team. The alarm bells began ringing for me when a colleague at the weekly team clinical meeting said that they had seen a young person 4 times and that they were now recommending them for referral to the endocrinology department to commence hormone therapy, she writes. Her actions triggered the initial inquiry in 2004, but Evans left the trust as she felt nothing had really changed. Her husband Mark has resigned as a covenant of the trust last February, accusing its management of having an overvalued belief in the expertise of the GIDS that was used to dismiss challenged examination. On the Crowd Justice website, Mrs. A, the mother of the autistic teenager, said she worried that no one, let alone my daughter, understands the risks and therefore cannot ensure informed consent is obtained. NHS England said it would not comment ahead of the hearing. A spokesman for the Tavistock and Portland NHS Trust said it is not appropriate for us to comment in detail in advance of the proposed legal proceedings. Fair enough. The GIDS is one of the longest established servicements of its type in the world, with an international reputation of being cautious and considered. Our clinical interventions are laid out in the nationally set service specifications. NHS England monitor our service very closely. The service has a high level of reported satisfaction and was rated good by the Care Quality Commission. So that's a mouthful. Yeah, but what I can tell, yeah, this whole gender identity development service, it's a bit of an odd one to kind of chew apart in this article. It's not particularly clear what it's trying to say. For my mind, it's like, against the overall question is, at what age can a child go for some sort of gender reassignment or the beginnings of it without needing informed consent from the parent or guardian? And one side on this, they're going, we need to say, at a certain age, if they are responsible enough to understand the consequences of what they're requesting, then they're mature enough. And the other side is saying, no, it needs to be a kind of set in stone age. This is below this age, they need permission. For me on this, it's, again, speaking as kind of from a physiological standpoint, because I was a PT, so physiology was my thing. I think until the body is fully developed, whatever age that is, and I know it varies, you tend to say 18, but some people develop earlier, some people develop later, but until that body is fully kind of developed and set in what it wants to be, and then you can reassign. Now you could say that's leaving it too late, but certain, just the skeleton and things like that, they have to develop a certain way, and things as you mature and you go through puberty and things, it's not just gender. As you grow and as you mature, going through puberty does not mean, the kind of sexual organs. It's loads of other hormonal things and structural things. And I think when that's going on, when your body's going through a particular growth phase, when it's developing in a certain way, if you introduce something into the mix which stops that or blocks it or slows it down or reverses it or changes its direction. I just think there's more complications there than might initially be, aware of. I think there's a lot more risk as opposed to letting the body run its course and go, right, regard of mentally what you want to do and what your gender preference is going to be. Let's say currently you are a male, let your body kind of do its thing, and that's right, you are now fully developed. So now we can, go for a gender reassignment, but your body's not going to suffer in the way it might do if we intervene at a point when it's still growing and still, trying to find its place from a physiological standpoint, because the body has, regardless of if you identify as male or female, if your body is female, it will develop that way. And I just think it should be allowed to do that and kind of complete that cycle before you then interrupt it or interfere with it and try and change it. I just think there's more problems there. And I'm not a scientist. I'm not. I did basic anatomy and physiology because I needed it for my thing, but I don't fully understand the endocrine, hormonal system, that kind of thing. But I know a little bit about it, so that I may be completely overshooting and going, no, it's absolutely fine if you are still developing, and we step in at this point, boom, and we can take it off to the gender you'd want to be as opposed to the gender you're currently developing as. It's absolutely fine. That may be the case. I don't know. I think more needs to be done. From the emotional side of it, again, I don't know what transgenders, what they go through emotionally, because I don't know. However, I do know that when you go through puberty, there's a whole lot of turmoil going on there anyway. So again, I do think there should be, I think it's very dangerous at that point when people are maybe not, even people who are going to grow up to be absolutely certain that they are female or male. At that point in their life, when you go through puberty and your hormones are all over the place, you could, see yourself going either way maybe. And I don't want to trivialize anything, but I think when your hormones are that kind of up in the air and your body is changing so much anyway, there might be a small percentage of people who go, right, no, I definitely identify as this particular gender and I want, hormones and suppressives and whatever it needs to be to take me in that direction. Yet, had they been given another year or two for their body to kind of settle, they may not have made that choice. So for me personally, it should be with the parents until at least 18. There is so many. If we say to children, you cannot legally drive a car till 17, and you cannot drink alcohol because you're not responsible until you're 18. You cannot buy fireworks. You cannot go into a shop and buy knives. We're getting to a point where you cannot buy an energy drink unless you're 16 and 17-year-old. That's round the corner. But you can make a decision about your body which is going to last forever and has far-reaching consequences and an impact on you. I just think I don't agree. I just think it should be until we know absolutely the consequence, positive or negative, of kind of stepping in early before someone's completely fully developed and changing the direction their body's going to go naturally. I think it needs to be at least 18. And I think it should stay with the parents, and not in a controlling way, but I just think it should be, because again, the parents could very well give consent. Your child, if they go to them and say, this is what I want to do, this is what I genuinely feel in my heart that I'm not developing the way I identify, the way I should, then the parents can give consent. It's not denying it. It's just saying you need that kind of permission, that secondary level of, yeah, he or she is absolutely want to do this, doctor, and they have our full support. Because it's not just whether or not a parent gives consent. It's about the support afterwards. Because if you're a young girl or boy, if you're, I don't know, again, it doesn't say kind of age this would go down from apply from, but say a 15, 16-year-old, if you make a decision which is, if you're allowed to make a decision and your parents are not on board with it, but they don't have to give permission and you just kind of go ahead with it, that support might not be there. And again, you can say, well, the parents should be understanding regardless, but it's, this is a big deal. And having that consent, having them on board for everything you're going to go through in the next however many years is a big deal, and not having that there. So I think that's not a primary concern about the legislation, but I just think it's an interesting point that kind of backs up that consent from the parents needs to be there. Because consent is acceptance. It's like, we agree, we're happy for you to do this. So as they go through it, you've got that parental support. Whereas if you don't need that consent and you just go ahead and do it, and you don't have that support home, you're going to have a tough time maybe. So anyway, that was it. Let's move on. So story number 4, Mail Online. Again, another heavy story. I do apologise, but yeah, former Monty Python star Terry Gilliam slams Me Too as a witch hunt. He complains he's tired of white men being blamed for everything, calls Harvey Weinstein's victims adults who made choices. Now, zip. I planned ahead today and had it ready for me, so I don't have to lean over to the sink. It's a sensational headline. And yes, he did say, women make choices. But further down, you kind of get the context of that. And anyway, let's read it out. Let's go through it. So, Terry Gilliam once again lashed out at political correctness in Hollywood, saying he's tired as a white male of being blamed for everything. And that Harvey Weinstein's alleged victims were adults who made choices. The Monty Python star and film director also repeated criticisms of the Me Too movement, calling it a witch hunt that has victimised a lot of people. Decent people. Yeah, I said Me Too is a witch hunt, the 12 Monkeys director told The Independent. I really feel there were a lot of people, decent people or mildly irritating people, who were getting harmed, and that's wrong. I don't like mob mentality. These women who came forward with claims were ambitious adults. Weinstein is a powerful film mogul who in October 2017 was first accused of sexual misconduct by actress Ashley Judd. Judd was quoted by the New York Times, which investigated numerous of the claims against Weinstein, stretching back decades. The groundbreaking report opened the floodgates as dozens more women came forward with allegations and a litany of crimes committed by Weinstein, including harassment, assault, and rape. Elisa Milano, the actress in the hit show Charmed, invited other women who were either harassed or assaulted to share their stories on Twitter with the hashtag #MeToo, igniting the viral phenomenon. The Weinstein revelations inspired other women to come forward with claims against powerful men in several industries, including Hollywood, the media, music, sports, politics, and academia. Weinstein, 67, has pleaded not guilty to charges brought by New York prosecutors who say he sexually assaulted 2 women, one in 2006 and another in 2013, who denied all the allegations against him. Gilliam, however, thinks Weinstein's alleged victims share some responsibility for what happened to them. Says there are many victims in Harvey's life and I feel sympathy for them. So keep that in mind. There are many victims in Harvey's life and I feel sympathy for them. But then, that's where he's going to lose you, Hollywood is full of very ambitious people who are adults and they make choices. We all make choices, and I could tell you who did make the choice and who didn't. Gilliam recalled that he had a negative experience working with Weinstein. I hate Harvey. I had to work with him and I know the abuse, but I don't want people saying that all men are abusive. Gilliam said that when he directed the 1991 film hit The Fisher King. 2 producers were women. One was a really good producer, the other was a neurotic bitch. It wasn't about their sex, it was about the position of power and how people use it. Gilliam then says he spoke to a famous actor recently. The topic of conversation was Me Too. She has got a story of being in the room and talking her way out, he said. She says, I can't tell you all the girls who didn't, and I know who they are, and I know the bumps in their careers. The point is you make choices. Gilliam continued, I can tell you about a very well-known actress coming up to me and saying, what do I have to do to get in your film, Terry? I don't understand why people behave as if this hasn't been going on as long as they've been powerful people. I understand that men have more power longer, but I'm tired as a white male of being blamed for everything that is wrong with the world. Gilliam then reportedly held up his hands and exclaimed, I didn't do it. The Independent writer pushed back and said that while not all white men are to blame, they are automatically given privileges that others aren't. Gilliam responded, it's been so simplified is what I don't like. When I announced that I'm a black lesbian in transition, people take offence as that why. Gilliam then says, I don't like the term black or white. I'm now referring to myself as a melanin-like male. I can't stand the simplistic, tribalistic behaviour that we're going through at the moment. Gilliam then tries to clarify, saying, I'm talking about being a man accused of all the wrong in the world because I'm white-skinned. So I better not be a man. I better not be white, okay? I don't find men sexually attractive. I've got to be a lesbian. What else can I be? I like girls. These are just logical steps. Gilliam is on a promotional tour touting his new film, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote, which opens in theatres in the United Kingdom at the end of January. So, unsurprisingly, his comments sparked a backlash on social media, where Twitter users took turns slamming the film director. What are we thinking here? The Ministry of Silly Takes, the Office of Parks and Recreation Director Michael Schur tweeted, used a play on words describing the title of the famous Monty Python sketch, The Ministry of Silly Walks. He continued, tempted to just go with upper class twit of the year, but it's kind of on the nose. How about, oh, shut the F up, you retroactively ruining my childhood. Actor comedian Paula Tompkins retweeted, you're so tired, go down, lie down, old man. Casper Sama tweeted, really enjoyable press campaign from Terry Gilliam, whose latest film is an adaptation of Cervantes' book and about an absurd and deluded old fool who gets in his head that he's a knight and bravely goes off to fight some windmills. Yeah, there's a whole string of these. Apparently, Gilliam also said that I'm into diversity more than anybody. So somebody says, I'm into diversity more than anybody, says Terry Gilliam, a man who has never hired a person of colour for a substantial film role. Scott Weinberg tweeted that. So, yeah. Okay, so let's just break this down a little bit. Is it true that white men are not to blame for everything in the world? Yeah, it is. Is it true that, a small percentage of women and probably men in the entertainment industry have done things with powerful people to get a film role or to get a big break? Also true. However, that's common knowledge, and it doesn't need repeating to try and, lessen the Me Too movement. Yeah, I mean, they say it's been a witch hunt. There have been people who've been targeted because somebody had an axe to grind, and it's been proven that allegations were not true. So yeah, it has smeared the good names of people. However, I would still argue it has done far more good in exposing people who abuse their position in order to do unspeakable things to women, to vulnerable women. So it's an unfortunate side effect that some people took the Me Too movement and used it to coerce or for publicity, everything. But that is, the impression I get is that's a very tiny percentage of the people who came forward who felt empowered to say, you know what, yeah, in this industry, I was treated badly or I was abused, and now that other people are kind of coming forward, I feel confident enough to come forward as well. So, yeah. So I get his points. He's just delivered them in a really blunt, silly way. I get that, yeah, when it was all going on, maybe everybody was thought of in a somewhat negative light. If you had any kind of white male in position of power in Hollywood, maybe, people were, casting aspersions on you, kind of, lumping you all in with, like, he's rich and he's powerful, he once took a picture next to Harvey Weinstein, so therefore he's just as guilty. Yeah, I get all that as well. But kind of shouting about it and go, oh, I'm tired of being blamed for everything. You're a white male. We've kind of got it good historically, so... Yeah, so he did, the headline is, he says, people made choices. Yeah, he did clarify that, it's like some women made a choice to try and get ahead in their career. But that doesn't need saying, because it kind of belittles, it implies that maybe it's a bigger percentage than it actually was. And it just seems a ridiculous thing it just seems an insensitive thing to say, as a lot of these comments were. They're blunt. From a guy who's always been quite willing to speak his mind, regardless. There is countless stories of Terry Gilliam on set where, he's upset actors and this kind of thing. And there's a lot of directors like that, admittedly. So he's quite a prickly character by all accounts. So him saying this is not out of character, but it's just, again, it's just... Reminds me of the Scorsese comments about Marvel movies and things. It's like, if that's your opinion, fine, but you've got to understand the culture at the minute and maybe just keep them to yourself. If you don't agree with something, yeah, you've got every right to share your opinion, but in this case, it just comes across as insensitive. So yeah, there are people who've used powerful men to enhance their position in certain industry, but I would suggest there is far more powerful men who use their position to get what they wanted from young actors and actresses. And yeah, I think the Me Too was a positive thing, and yes, there was some unpleasantness about it, but that's the case of anything. You know, after, I don't know, the 9/11 thing, when people set up fundraisers to raise money for victims, a very positive thing. But even that, people managed to exploit it, and you know, people who said they were there and weren't to try and garner publicity for themselves or self-promote themselves, or people set up fake charity things. Whenever something positive happens, there's always a way for somebody to, some odious little git, to make money off it or to make success off it. So even with the Me Too, although it was a very positive thing, yet some people did exploit it. But overall, it was a good thing. And hopefully, you know, the attitude that this has always gone on, just the longevity of it does not give it any legitimacy, because it's always happened. You know, it's just the way it is. No, it's not just the way it is, and it shouldn't be just the way it is. You know, women and men should not have to suffer any kind of abuse in the workplace. Period. That's it. And I say men because everyone's like, you know, in case you don't want, yeah, thing, there's an article about Brendan Fraser, the actor, happened to him as well. So yeah, it's a far higher percentage of women, but it does affect everybody. People in power thinking they can do what they want to people who have less power. So yeah, just again, I'm not angry at Terry Gilliam. I think he's been stupid. But as you like say, as you read it, it's kind of like, he just sounds like he's at the end of his tether with people going, you know, the articles and people coming out with sort of laying it's all the white man's fault. So yeah, I get it, but it's kind of like, you don't take that on the chin, because you know we've had it cushy for a long time. And yeah, anyway, so yeah, move on. The last one is light affair. Light affair to end the day on. This is from the inside of ISM. MSN News. Work at the Harry Potter studio tour in the UK was sentenced for stealing more than $48,000 worth of merchandise to sell online. Yeah, so the employee at the Harry Potter studio tour in the UK has been charged with stealing almost £37,000 worth of merchandise during their employment there, the Crown Prosecution Service heard on Friday. So the Harry Potter studio tour is a tourist destination on the outskirts of London where fans can go and see how the hit movies were made. Between December 2017 and March 2018, 35-year-old Adam Hill stole 1,040 items, including wands, ties, badges and keyrings, and sold them on eBay. He was caught after colleagues started to notice merchandise popping up and then disappearing underneath Hill's desk. How very appropriate. Police officers searched Hill's home in Cambridgeshire as well as his car. They found 12 packages ready to be posted. He pleaded guilty to the theft on November 27th and was sentenced on Friday to a suspended prison sentence of 14 months plus 250 hours of community service. Yeah, so he's basically, you know, he works the Harry Potter experience. There is loads of props, and obviously there's a gift shop with the keyrings and all kind of memorabilia and a piece of the Harry Potter world, and he's been pinching it and selling it on eBay to supplement his income, and he's been caught. So yeah, I was trying to think of like a really witty spell. I can't come up with one, like merchandise, disappear or something. I'm sure you come up with something in the comments far better than that. I just, you know. But yeah, again, just one of the things. Don't bite the hands that feed you. Don't steal. Stealing's wrong. If you want it, pay for it. Yeah, but so yeah, he was nicking stuff from work, and he's been caught because he was sticking it under his desk and then taking it out. So I get the impression what he was doing, he was kind of getting some choice items through the day and just putting them under his desk. And at the end of the day, maybe they went into a bag he brought in with him and out into his car, then home, and then onto eBay. So yeah, he's been caught basically for being an idiot. Let's face it, if you work in an office with other people and you have loads of stuff under your desk that disappears every day, and next day there's different stuff, and that's it. And someone does an inventory and says, we're missing 10 ones, we're missing 30 key rings and all this lot. Any ideas? No. So, yeah, so he's not got jail, he's got 14 months suspended sentence and some community service, so hopefully it's something appropriate that's going to teach him a lesson, and that stealing is wrong, kids, don't do it. Anyway, so that's it for today, guys. Links to all the stories I've discussed can be found in the description below, so feel free to go and check them out. Let me know what you think about this video and tell me, without incriminating yourself, have you ever taken anything from work? Maybe not to sell, but just because they've got, you know, you needed a stapler or a tape dispenser or something your work does which you don't, you thought, you know what, they won't miss one. But again, don't incriminate yourself. Anyway, answers in the comments, please, along with any thoughts you'd like to share. These were mine. Not necessarily important. They're not necessarily right or wrong. They're just what was on my mind. So until next time, bye for now.